In this video, we're going to be tying the Dirty Hippy. This is a new fly developed by Charlie Craven. It's a streamer pattern. First thing we're going to do is just add a large cone to the hook. And the next thing to do is we're going to wrap the middle of the shank with some 020 or 025, nice thick lead wire. Then we're going to slide that cone to just past the midway point, right about there, and we can tie in our thread. And we're going to take our cone, we're just going to slide it right back to that lead wire. We're going to build up just a little bit of a thread kind of wedge, thread dam if you will. Then we'll jump our thread to just behind the cone, and I'll jump it back in front again just to kind of really lock it down. And I'll jump back again. We're going to wrap through this lead wire. I'll wrap right behind it, add another little thread wedge to keep it in place. And I'll wrap through it a few times just to make sure it's nice and secure. In this fly, there's no need to take the thread all the way back to the bend. We just take it just a little bit of a ways past that lead wire. And that is plenty far for this fly. And we'll take our thread and jump just in front of our cone again. Now we're ready to tie in our flash for the fly. We're going to tie in some Flashabou. I like to mix colors together depending on the color of the fly that you're going to tie. It'll depend on what colors of Flashabou you are going to use. We're going to be tying kind of a brown trout color here. So I've mixed pearl and brown together. If you're tying a rainbow color, you can add pinks and rainbow colored Flashabou. We want to kind of wrap this Flashabou around the cone. And if you want more flash, you can double the material over and force it back up over itself and tie it in again. And that'll give the fly a little bit more coverage and also kind of helps splay out that flash when you tie it right in front of the cone like that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to trim the flash. I'm going to trim it just about 3/4 of a shank length past our bend. Now the next thing to do is to tie in the underbody of the fly. For this we're going to use some white Arctic fox. I'm going to pull out all the under fur here at the base of the fox. And then I'll pull out any of the really long guard hairs as well. We don't want those either. Now the next thing to do is we're going to tie in the underside of the fly here. We want it to be just about the same length as our Flashabou that we just tied in. And we also want this to go right up to the cone. I'll kind of work it around the point of the hook here. Kind of naturally let it lay back. Here we go. Now the next thing to do is we're going to take one piece of blood quill marabou, and we'll use tan for this color of fly that we're tying. You can use olive as well if you're tying like a rainbow colored Dirty Hippy. And we're going to tie this in so that it's about the same length as the white fox. Trim out the excess. And for this next step, we're going to creep just a little farther forward on the head of the fly here. Then we're going to take some tan Arctic Fox. We'll take a piece that's a little bit more dense than the piece that we used for the underside. And again, remove the under fur. Any really long guard hairs. I like to leave a few of the guard hairs, but I do remove any of the really long ones. And then for this piece, we want to actually roll this piece around the hook, do a nice loose wrap, do a second loose wrap, then tighten down. And the reason we kind of rolled it is we want to get coverage around the body of this fly. And we left that room at the front here so we don't crowd it too much. We can wrap over all that, make sure it's nice and secure. And the next step is to just kind of finish off the head. For this, we're going to use some ice dubbing, and for this color we're going to use tan. And I'm just going to take a nice dense little clump of ice dubbing. I'm just going to fold it around the entire shank of the hook here. I'll tie it right kind of in the middle of a dense clump. I'll tighten down with a couple wraps. Then what I'm going to do is just push the material back, work my thread through it, then I'll tie off right in front of it. And it looks a little bit scraggly right now, that's okay. Then I'll just whip finish. And I'll just kind of peel off any of the really long fibers of ice dub that kind of get trapped. All we're looking to do is just kind of finish off the head a little bit. You can use a dubbing brush if you want to really work it back. I just usually use my hands and just kind of pluck out the longer fibers. Adds just a little bit of sparkle to the head of the fly. Now the next thing to do is to add the eyes. And for this, I'm going to use a little bit of super glue, and you can use your favorite fly tying eye. And I like to set the eyes back a little ways on this fly. I don't want to put them right up at the front of the hook. I usually set them to the area just kind of right in front of the cone. And you just take your eye and plant it where you want it. And press into place. Now the next eye, you want to make sure that you apply it in the same exact spot on the opposite side of the fly. So what I'll do is I'll just apply that glue in the same spot, and then I'll place the fly, or the eye, on the fly. And before I really squeeze it, I'm just going to make sure that I've got it lined up. I just look face on and I look above. That kind of gives me a good indicator on whether I'm where I want to be. Just give this a quick squeeze. And that one went on a little crooked, but there we go. And that is the Dirty Hippy. And to finish off the fly, if you want to add barring patterns to the fly, you can do that. You can take a marker and just kind of bar the tops of the fly. And that is a great little streamer for rainbow trout and brown trout, anything predatory that likes to eat little minnows. And you can find all the materials to tie the Dirty Hippy on our website, intheriffle.com. And there you'll find the recipe as well. And that is the Dirty Hippy by Charlie Craven.